Part three, let me just end by saying our strategy going forward. I think process is important. There are some who are impatient about this, who are more kind of quantitatively oriented, say, just tell us what the plan is and we'll do it. But process is important for obvious reasons, because some of the things that are being discussed are very, very searing to members of the community, and I understand that. So there are several pieces of the process that I've proposed. The first is the Revenue Task Force. Even though it's the Revenue Task Force, we'll be sure to get from them suggestions for other things, including cost savings. And I want to announce the membership of the task force. So if we could we have a slide, I believe. The task force will be chaired by Philip Weisberg with two co-vice chairs, Milton Glaser and Eric Hirschhorn. It will be convened by the chair of our Senate, Tom McKelly, who was elected by faculty and students to be the chair of the Senate, and the senior officer working with the task force will be Vice President for Finance and Administration, T.C. Westcott. Let me quickly go through the list. We'll post it online so you don't have to write very fast right now. This is in alphabetical order, but there are students, faculty, and alumni on the list. Dennis Adams, Kevin Burke, Peter Cafiero, who's in there as his capacity of the elected president of the Alumni Association, George Delagrammaticus, T.J. Gottesdiener, Ann Griffin, Mitchell Lipton, who will be ex officio as Dean of Admissions, Ed Makuvos, Iwana Pala, Sharang Patke, Malini Ramnarayan, Ariana Ravilla, David Turnbull, Claire Wesselman, and Derek Whitner, VP for Development, who will be ex officio. This is a challenging leadership task, but also for those who are on it, I think, an extraordinary leadership experience, because leadership is about choosing. Leadership is about evaluating a situation thoroughly and about having to make a tough choice. It's easy to jump on a bandwagon. It's easy to fan flames of rage and rancor. It is much more difficult to actually assess a challenge and the opportunities and come up with a plan or a set of options that are not wishful, but that are sound, based in experience and seasoned judgment. I want you to thank these people, particularly the alumni who have big, big jobs themselves, for agreeing to take the time to serve. Now, just a few more minutes, then I'm done. In addition to that, it's absolutely essential that we look at the cost side. This cannot be done through revenues alone, and it cannot be done through costs alone. The magnitude of the challenge is large, and both will be necessary, and on both fronts, I can assure you, the choices are difficult. And it will be the quiet, thoughtful effort that will lead us through this. So we will have, convened by T.C. Westcott, an operational savings working group, which will look at everything from printing costs to energy savings to a whole range of things. We will be conducting an administrative review, bringing in an experienced external consultant with no stake in the game to look at our administrative structure and processes. I've always believed that an administration should exist only to serve the educational activities of the college, the research and creative work of the faculty, and some of the public service kinds of things that are part of our mission. I will make some very hard-nosed assessments to make sure we have the leanest, meanest, most effective, most catalyzing administrative structure that enables our students and faculty to do their creative work. And I will be conducting, as the Chief Academic Officer, an academic review, which will include external input from thought leaders in the field to make sure that academically we maintain unsurpassed levels of excellence so that Cooper Union will be known always as a place that has the very, very highest standards of excellence and it's distinctive in its own way. That we are teaching the kinds of things that students graduating in 2011 should be learning to make them the most innovative and effective citizens. And finally, I'll be convening a set of brainstorming processes, because even as we work to try and solve a financial problem, we always have to keep imagining on the positive side, what should Cooper Union be like in this world that's changing so fast? How can we make the most important contributions to serving the public good? And so I will be setting up some opportunities for people to brainstorm about the future in a much more optimistic, if you like, setting, because in the end, we will not just come through this problem, we will come through this financial challenge stronger and more vibrant as an institution, and we will need all of those ideas. So let me just close by thanking you all. I'm going to need your help. I'm going to need your support. Thank you very much.
What is it about Cooper Union that makes you confident that we will come away from this difficult time even stronger?
Well, that's actually, an easy one, because of the quality of the people of Cooper Union, the students, the faculty, the alumni, the friends of the institution. And the inspiration of our founder. As some of you know, I have plunged into reading about Peter Cooper, who is one of the most inspiring figures, not only of his time, but for today. He is really was a great 19th century thinker who I believe today is a great 21st century thinker. And he was always inventing and reinventing. And we don't have time now, but if we get together for coffee or something, I will tell you story after story after story based upon my reading of his. I have his unpublished autobiography in my office, thanks to our wonderful librarians in our archives, but also reading original documents that go back to that time that are researched in this extraordinary biography by Edward Mack called Peter Cooper. He found himself in difficult situations many times, and he looked at his options and he reinvented his enterprises and himself. Reinvented. And so that is what I've said. We will reinvent ourselves, and we have the quality of people, the character and creativity to do that.
A couple of these questions have been answered when we announced the task force. It was just announced, but what is the timeline for the task force?
Well, the task force, obviously the holidays are close upon us. The task force will be doing most of its work in the spring semester. We'll convene as soon as possible in the spring semester. A lot of preparatory work will go on before that, for example, setting up a website and other things that can be used by the task force to solicit ideas. And I think the bulk of the work of the task force is going to have to be done, by the end of March. It's a tight time frame, but we've got, as you can see, some people of extraordinary accomplishment with a lot of experience who are Cooper people, know what Cooper Union is all about, and so that's the timeline. By the end of the spring semester, we have to make some very fundamental decisions on both the revenue side and the cost side to bring this institution into balance. At the same time, we also have to look for some short-term liquidity, excuse the technical term, to bridge us from the depletion of our unrestricted endowment pool to when we achieve a sustainable financial model.
This question is about the expenditures task force, which is, what is the status of that? I think that has been gone over, but another question, why wasn't a union representative asked to participate in the task force? Well, we saw that there are union representatives in the revenue, but what about the expenditure?
DC, do you want to comment on this? Could you come up to the mic?
So the answer is yes. They don't know who they are yet, but I plan on asking them this afternoon. And hopefully they'll be willing to serve, because it's not unlike the Revenue Task Force. It's really a big job. There'll be a lot of information to process, and there'll be a lot of time that has to be given to thinking about what is really necessary at the Cooper Union to keep the academic enterprise thriving. So yes, there will be union members, both from the faculty and from the staff, full-time and part-time.
You covered this in your speech, but unless there's anything else you want to say, what is your view on entrepreneurship being fostered at Cooper Union?
Oh, my view is that is a way forward, and by entrepreneurship, I don't just mean technical, scientific and engineering entrepreneurship, I mean social entrepreneurship as well, which artists and architects can be very much engaged with. So yes, we have to be innovative. We have to bring down some of the rigidity frankly, in some aspects of the curriculum to free up, to give oxygen for the students and faculty to branch out and make connections across disciplines and be entrepreneurial on the technical front, but also on the social and artistic front.
What do you think about having a Cooper Union open house, at least for one day, to give people an opportunity to see the school and the work of the students? This would be different from the end of the year show, and would be taking place to encourage donations.
Great idea, thank you. Let's do it. Lawrence, would you put that on the list?
What is, quote, on the table with regard to decreasing annual expenditure?
Everything.
Tuition keeps being described as a last resort option. What defines last resort, so that when we find ourselves in that situation, we can deem tuition an appropriate solution?
Well, I look for advice from the task force. The task force will come up with recommendations, and I think the task force is eminently qualified to balance some of the very serious financial needs with sensitivity for what Cooper Union is all about. So I look forward to that recommendation.
What kind of prepayment provisions does the $175 million MetLife loan have, just in case we find a lot of money?
This is a T.C. Westcott question. Yeah.
Who's looking for all that money? I want to come. Can I come? So the MetLife loan has a prepayment provision that is based on the prevailing interest rates. So the lower the interest rates are, the higher the prepayment penalty is. And there's some dispute whether I've got it right or not. I'm happy to be corrected, but at the moment it's running about $72 to $75 million. So when MetLife makes an investment or they loan you this money, they have a long-term horizon, a long-term view of how much money they're going to get back. It's not like a mortgage on your house kind of thing. They make investments for the very long term, and they're committing to having a certain amount of funding available to put in those investments. So at the moment, it's somewhere between 72 and 75 million. Earlier in the year, when the interest rates were higher, it was as low as 35 million. So perhaps, on the one hand, I'd love interest rates to go up so we get a better prepayment. On the other hand, I don't want interest rates to go up because things cost more. But that's where we are.
These last two cards will actually constitute the same topic, so I'll combine them, but I'll read them both in full. Is there any way to reduce the deficit by cutting back on administrative costs? Is this, quote, on the table? And then the next card says, the decision to charge tuition will undoubtedly lead to some of the best students to go elsewhere. Why has administrative composition, deans, in parentheses, deans, presidents, not been put on the table in an effort to, quote, keep bringing in the best, I think that is, the best while charging, I'm sorry, I can't quite read this, but we get the idea. Who is on the task force, we got that. And then some staff and faculty have declared they would rather be fired than have Cooper lose its ideals. How do you feel about this? If it would prevent us from charging tuition, would you take a reduction in pay or step down from office?
I said everything is on the table. Yes.
Well, that's it for questions. Thank you very much for coming, and we'll be talking.
Thank you all.